So, Lucy, thinking about managing and leading the staff team, I think that's just really a tall order. And I'd be interested to hear how you've begun to, move that this year. Because after all, developing RFP is about shifting a culture and an ethos towards valuing choice-led reading rather than delivering a programme of intervention. And they're both quite different from one another. So how have you gone along the journey?
So we've made it a real focus in our school this year. We initially carried out the teacher surveys and children's surveys to establish an accurate baseline of where we were reading for pleasure, with that idea of reading for pleasure, and from those surveys it threw up key areas for focus and support that the staff needed. We also developed a change team, and this has been really key. So this was key members of staff throughout school who were there to drive the reading for pleasure forward and be good role models, and also to support staff in developing their own knowledge and pedagogy of reading for pleasure. So from those surveys, the key areas were highlighted, and from that we developed an action plan, and the change team were really key in driving that action plan forward. We had an inset day right back in the beginning of the year in order to kickstart and enthuse everybody and get that real key message, the key messages about what reading for pleasure looks like in school. We also established staff meeting time. Staff meetings were allocated every half term in order that we could look at research, we could audit resources and talk about resources, we could discuss ideas that people had tried in their own classrooms and activities and the impact of those. So it was really important that actually that half-termly revisiting that area of reading for pleasure was key in just addressing those issues for staff.
The aspect I'd be interested in knowing a bit more about is how do you monitor the impact of the shifts in practice that you're developing? I mean, staff are clearly widening their knowledge, great. But what's the consequence of that? Have you been targeting sort of the 20%, the least advantaged children, perhaps?
Yeah, we've encouraged right from the word go, we've encouraged staff to document conversations. So again, not in a formal way, but documenting those conversations with children so that we can monitor the change from September throughout the year. The lowest 20% has been key, and again, it's that understanding of what we mean by the lowest 20% in terms of reading for pleasure. And this doesn't necessarily mean the same children as your bottom 20% in reading ability. Now, as a change team, we've been very conscious of monitoring, and one thing that really gave us a good feel across the board as to what was happening was actually doing a learning walk. So we did two aspects for our learning walk. One was the environment and looking at reading areas and the choices that were available and how they were displayed. The idea of less is more is quite difficult for all teachers to take on board, but that definitely was key. But the other aspect of our learning walk was to actually talk to children. And that really gave us a flavour, again, across the board, because there are, again, are pockets where work still needs to be developed. And this comes from those discussions with children. Their natural enthusiasm, their shift from talking about how well they read to actually how they love reading. And that was, again, a key difference between the conversations we had in September around reading and the conversations we had throughout the year. That shift of actually that enthusiasm and that engagement and that love of reading, rather than talking about how well they read. And the enthusiasm about the books on offer, and also seeing their teacher as a reader, as an equal of recommendations between themselves and the teacher, and that acknowledgement that the teacher knew them as readers because of the material that they had on offer, and that really came out from the children that we talked to.